On her first day working as a housekeeper, she noticed books scattered all over a wealthy man's mansion. She looked around curiously and saw that even the walls were packed with books. She realized that knowledge really can change a person's future. So after returning home, she immediately turned off her two sons' TV. She told them that every week, they had to finish reading 2 books at the library and write a short report about them on the weekend. Her younger son didn't understand, but he had no idea that this decision by his mother would completely change the direction of his life. The boy's name was Carson. As the only poor student in his class, he studied hard every night until late, but his grades were still near the bottom. Most of his scores stayed around 20 or 30 points, but his teacher never gave up on him. Instead, the teacher kindly asked how many answers he got right on the test. The whole class burst into laughter. Carson could only lower his head in embarrassment. After class, he avoided everyone. But even then, he still couldn't escape the teasing from his classmates. Some called him slow, others said he was dumb, but the most hurtful thing was hearing, "Hey, Carson." Carson finally lost control after hearing it. He grabbed the lock in his hand and threw it hard. The other student ended up needing several stitches, facing the principal's harsh questioning. Carson could only say it was an accident, but that explanation clearly didn't work. To make him seriously reflect on his actions, the principal pulled out his report card and showed it to Carson's mother. It was filled with shocking D's and F's. Those grades spoke for themselves. The principal said Carson's problems were serious. If things didn't improve, the school would have no choice but to expel him. On the way home, Carson felt full of guilt. He promised his mother he would never fight again. But when it came to his grades, he couldn't make any promises. He had already tried his best. Maybe his classmates were right. Maybe he really wasn't smart. But his mother's words hit him deeply and awakened the fighting spirit inside him. For the first time, he started dreaming about a bigger world beyond his own. But less than 2 days later, he was already lost in funny TV shows again. Seeing this, his mother turned off the TV, then continued doing housework while pushing her sons to read. That was when she realized his poor grades were partly because he was severely nearsighted. Without hesitation, she took out her savings and bought Carson a pair of glasses. From then on, his wandering eyes finally stayed focused on books. The words on the blackboard became clear too. His grades slowly started improving, even though he still got a D on this test. At least he passed. His mother was proud of his progress. But while the family was once again laughing together at a TV show, his mother suddenly fell into deep sadness. She stayed in bed for days, unable to find joy in anything. Carson was heartbroken seeing this, and deep inside him, it planted the dream of becoming a doctor. While the boys were at school, their mother secretly went to see a therapist. She had grown up in foster care. Her painful childhood led her to marry at just 13. She thought it would save her from hardship, but after Carson was born, she discovered her husband already had another family. For years, she raised her 2 sons alone. Even though she couldn't read, she worked 15 hours a day cleaning wealthy people's homes. After work, she still cared deeply about her children's education and growth. Every night, the exhaustion and emotional pain became almost unbearable for her. The doctor suggested she stay at the hospital and explained it was a free community program. So after returning home, she told the boys she was leaving for work in another city, but quietly checked herself into the hospital instead. She asked a kind nun to look after the children. At the same time, she soon found a letter that Carson had hidden in her clothes. It was filled with how much he missed her and promised he would study hard, reading her son's heartfelt words. She broke down in tears, and Carson didn't let her down. When the teacher asked about grades again, this time, he answered with confidence. After getting his first A, he ran home excitedly. That's when he found out his mother had returned, healthy again. His mother went back to cleaning houses like she always did, and that led to the scene at the beginning of the video in the days that followed. Carson became a regular at the library. At first, he only picked storybooks he liked, but that helped him learn many new words. Soon, he stood out in spelling competitions at school. He also became obsessed with quiz shows. The wide range of questions greatly sparked his curiosity. Even an ordinary rock on the ground could make him want to learn more. Driven by that curiosity, he dove deep into the world of books at the library. He eagerly searched for everything about rocks. A few days later, his science teacher held up a black rock and asked if anyone knew what it was. The entire class stayed silent. Carson looked calm on the outside, but inside, his mind was racing. After the teacher asked several more times, he finally gathered the courage to raise his hand. Then Carson turned everything he had learned into a calm and confident explanation. He carefully explained how obsidian is formed. Even the teacher didn't know some of the details. That completely changed how his classmates saw him. After class, the teacher asked Carson to stay behind and brought him to a microscope. He told him to take a look, and that single glance opened the door to a whole new world for Carson. His desire to explore the unknown became even stronger. He even carried books with him everywhere he went, inspired by him. His mother started learning how to read too. It turns out excellence really can inspire others. In the blink of an eye, 4 years passed. Carson, who once ranked last in class, had now become one of the top students in the entire grade. He was even named an outstanding graduate. Seeing her son shining on stage, his mother felt incredibly proud. But during what should have been a celebration, a white teacher suddenly stepped up and scolded the white students in the audience. She said they couldn't even outperform a black kid without a father. The moment she said that, the atmosphere instantly became tense, but no one spoke up for Carson. After all, it was a space dominated by white people. At that moment, his mother finally realized that no matter how outstanding her son became, he still couldn't escape the deep-rooted prejudice in society. So after returning home, she used all of her savings to transfer Carson to a different school. She hoped things would be better there, but the moment Carson stepped onto the new campus, someone mocked his old-fashioned clothes. He realized judgment exists everywhere. Still, he quickly adjusted to life there. He even became friends with the boy who mocked him. But slowly, Carson started heading down the wrong path. His temper became more and more aggressive. He even bought a small knife for protection. And for the first time, he argued with his mother because he hated the cheap clothes she bought him. He even grabbed a hammer in anger. Thankfully, his brother stopped him in time, preventing a terrible tragedy. Back at school, one of his friends casually joked, "Why are your clothes so ugly today?" That careless joke hit Carson. When he was already furious, he grabbed a sharp object nearby and lunged forward. Luckily, the other boy's belt stopped the attack, snapping back to reality. Carson ran home in panic. He didn't know when he had become such an angry person. Maybe it was the rebellion that comes with adolescence, but it was also part of growing up. Some people lose their way during this time, while others grow stronger because of it. Clearly, Carson belonged to the second group. He never forgot his dream, with excellent grades. He was accepted into Yale University with a full scholarship. He also met a talented girlfriend together. They often talked about the future and dreamed of a bright life ahead. But at that time, Carson was facing a serious challenge because he had always struggled with chemistry. He had been failing the subject for years. If he couldn't pass this time, his dream of becoming a doctor might be over. While he was worrying about it, his girlfriend said something that woke him up, so Carson began studying day and night to catch up. With his girlfriend's help, he filled in the gaps in his knowledge. Whenever he felt overwhelmed while studying late at night, his mother's encouraging words would echo in his mind, giving him the strength to keep going. 1 month later, final exams arrived as scheduled. Facing complex chemistry formulas on the test, Carson was able to quickly find solutions in his mind. His pen seemed to move across the paper as if it had a life of its own. He finished the entire exam in one smooth flow. When the results were announced, Carson's name was clearly on the list. As the saying goes, don't stop chasing your goals. Beyond the endless road lies a new spring mountain. As long as you give your all, one day, all your hard work will, under time's refinement, bloom beautifully. So in the year of graduation, Carson confidently arrived at Johns Hopkins Hospital for an interview. It is known as a sacred place in the medical field, and also where many dreams are tested and broken, because Johns Hopkins Hospital only accepts 2 neurosurgery residents each year. But this year, there were 125 applicants, all from top universities around the world. So the interviewer only cared about one question: why do you think you can be a good brain surgeon? The interviewer had heard this answer countless times before. Sensing the pressure, Carson quickly began to think. Carson's curiosity for the unknown is exactly what every great doctor needs. At the same time, his calmness and confidence impressed the interviewer, and so Carson was successfully accepted. Although he was only an intern doctor, he was still full of passion on his first day. He greeted everyone warmly. He hoped that in this career he loved, he could truly shine. However, reality is always different from expectations. He was mistaken for a janitor by nurses, and during one ward round, he was even asked by the doctor to draw blood like a nurse. But after carefully reading the patient's chart, Carson found the patient had severe anemia. If blood was drawn carelessly, it could worsen the condition. But his response seemed like a challenge to authority in the chief doctor's eyes. Carson felt frustrated, but he held it in, not because he was afraid, but because life had taught him how to control his emotions. After a night of reflection, Carson. The next morning, he returned to his usual confidence and optimism. Only later did he understand that this is what adults call maturity, to build good relationships with his colleagues. He brought a bouquet symbolizing goodwill and gave lilies to a nurse. Days passed quietly and normally until one day, the hospital received an emergency patient with a severe head injury. If surgery was not done in time, the patient would soon die from blood loss. But at that moment, all surgeons had gone to a city meeting. Only Carson, the intern, was left. However, operating without supervision was strictly against hospital rules and considered a serious violation. But watching a life fade away, how could he stand by and do nothing? After a long internal struggle, he asked the nurse to prepare the anesthesiologist and resolutely walked into the operating room under the bright surgical lights. Carson's mind and hands reached an unprecedented level of focus and coordination. Every movement was precise. After 4 long hours of surgery, he finally brought the patient back from the edge of death. However, as soon as he left the operating room, Carson was called into the chief doctor's office and scolded. "Luckily, you saved the patient this time. If you hadn't, your career would have been over." Carson could only listen in silence, but then the chief doctor changed his tone. All of his anxiety suddenly disappeared. Carson was exceptionally promoted to attending physician. This meant he would now carry greater responsibility for complex cases. Not long after, the hospital received a special patient. A 4-year-old girl had suffered from epilepsy since she was 18 months old. Now she had hundreds of seizures every day. She had lost the ability to walk, speak, and even eat. Only when asleep did she seem normal. For years, her parents visited countless doctors, but nothing helped. Now Johns Hopkins Hospital became their only hope as the girl's attending physician. Carson had never seen such a difficult case, but in his dictionary there was no such word as give up. So Carson used his strongest skill, his ability to read and research. He went through vast medical literature. Finally, that night, he found a possible solution. To fully cure the girl, they would have to remove the part of her brain responsible for seizures in the left hemisphere. This left the parents devastated, but at this point, there was no other option. They could only hope Dr. Carson would create a miracle. And so Carson carried immense pressure. He entered the operating room once again, even though he had rehearsed the procedure countless times beforehand and had anticipated every possible complication. This surgery was far more complex than anything he had done before. What was originally expected to take 6 hours ended up lasting twice as long. And after the surgery ended, the girl did not wake up as expected. This unusual situation made the medical staff tense and alert. The family rushed over anxiously to ask for updates. Fortunately, after Carson examined her, he found that the girl was only temporarily unconscious due to blood loss. Whether she would regain the ability to walk and speak could only be determined after she woke up. But while they were talking, a soft child's voice suddenly spoke. "Mommy, Charlie." Carson finally let out a long breath of relief. To thank him for saving their child, the girl's parents invited reporters to cover the story. Carson carefully and thoroughly shared every detail of the surgery, and because of this, he became widely known. But just as everything was going smoothly, his pregnant wife carrying twins suddenly suffered severe bleeding at night. Carson rushed his wife to the hospital, then he waited anxiously outside. At that moment, he deeply felt the suffering that families go through. It felt as if time had slowed down, each second filled with endless worry, especially when the doctor finally came out. His anxiety reached its peak. Fortunately, his wife was out of danger, but sadly, the twins could not be saved. The news hit him like a bolt from the blue, and Carson looked visibly worn down. As an excellent surgeon, he could not save his own children. This was one of life's deepest sorrows. When his wife woke up and saw Carson by her bedside instead of at work, she felt a wave of guilt. After returning to the hospital, Carson seemed on the surface to have returned to his normal self. He calmly checked the newborn unit as if nothing had happened. But when he got home and sat alone by the bed, the tears he had held back finally fell. In truth, what fate gives us is never a path full of flowers and applause. Sometimes it begins with misfortune instead. But what matters most is having the courage to face everything again years later. Fate presented Carson with a new challenge. A hospital in Germany received conjoined twins. Joined at the head, Carson, then one of the most renowned pediatric neurosurgeons, was invited to take part in the surgical discussion. When he saw the 2 tiny babies on the bed, he couldn't help but smile at first. But it was quickly replaced by deep concern. The parents openly shared their fears and hopes. Seeing the helpless eyes of the young parents, Carson, who had initially considered walking away, thought back to his younger self. In the end, he decided to take on the difficult challenge. After the initial diagnosis, Carson found that the twins were only partially connected in brain tissue, while all other organs were separate. This significantly reduced the surgical difficulty. Even so, there was no successful precedent for separating conjoined skulls. This was because infants have very limited blood volume, and controlling heavy bleeding during surgery was a major challenge that needed to be solved. So Carson once again buried himself in medical research, but after months, there was still no progress. The surgery kept being postponed again and again, until one day, while watching his mother turn a faucet on and off, an idea suddenly struck him. He immediately explained to the parents that human blood vessels are like flowing pipes. If you can temporarily shut off the faucet, you can stop the flow of water based on this idea. Carson proposed a bold surgical plan. After careful consideration, the couple finally agreed to proceed. What followed was an intense series of preparations. The first priority was equipping the operating room with backup power. To prevent any power failure during surgery, then all critical medical equipment had to be duplicated, such as 2 anesthesia monitors and 2 heart-lung machines. In addition, they assembled a multidisciplinary expert team, including anesthesiologists, cardiac surgeons, plastic surgeons, and neurosurgeons. The team totaled about 50 people, filling nearly every inch of the operating room, to ensure every detail was executed with precision. Each group repeatedly practiced their part of the procedure and also prepared for any possible emergencies. Once everything was ready, this groundbreaking surgery finally began. First came the pre-cardiac surgical phase, which alone took over 2 hours. Next came the critical skull separation phase. Carson took a deep breath to steady himself, clearly feeling the weight of pressure. But with his strong medical knowledge and clinical experience, he was able to remain calm and composed while carrying out each step of the procedure. However, the complexity exceeded expectations. The process of separating blood vessels and nerves alone lasted from 11:37 a.m. to 4:21 per fert. Just as they were separating the venous sinus, sudden heavy bleeding occurred. Fortunately, Carson reacted quickly and stopped the bleeding in time. Then he continued the separation of other structures. The surgery continued until 9:45 p.m. At that moment, another bleeding crisis occurred, and this time it was even more severe than before. In this critical moment, Carson suggested temporarily stopping the baby's hearts, but other doctors immediately objected. Because the blood vessels had not been fully separated, stopping the hearts early would make it impossible to complete the procedure in time. However, if they did nothing, excessive blood loss would also be fatal. So Carson decisively ordered the temporary cardiac arrest. With the injection of cardioplegic solution, the twins' hearts quickly stopped beating. The next hour became a critical race against death. Carson did not allow himself any hesitation. He focused entirely on the scalpel in his hands. Every incision meant life or death. When half the time had passed, the surgery entered its most critical separation phase. As the 2 little lives were successfully separated, the real challenge had only just begun. At that moment, only 27 precious minutes remained. Carson and his team raced against time. They quickly began reconstructing blood vessels and nerves. However, just reconstructing the confluence of sinuses took 3 times longer than planned. When all vessels were finally rebuilt, only 5 minutes were left. The medical staff quickly turned on the warming pump to restore blood temperature. Several critical nerves were still not sutured. Carson suddenly felt overwhelming pressure. He worried he might not be able to finish within the allotted time, but at the critical moment, his mother's encouraging words echoed in his mind, and he also saw in his mind the hopeful eyes of the young parents. All of this instantly turned into strength. Finally, at the last second, Carson miraculously completed all nerve sutures. Immediately, the cardiac surgeon quickly restored both babies' heartbeats. This meant that the 22-hour surgery was a complete success. Next, only the plastic surgeons needed to complete scalp reconstruction. Carson then walked out of the operating room, exhausted, but he still immediately went to find the parents. This is a film based on a true story. After that, Carson and his team went on to save 5 more pairs of conjoined twins. And over the following decades, they helped hundreds of children suffering from epilepsy return to normal lives. Even today, the hemispherectomy procedure he pioneered is still one of the most effective treatments for severe epilepsy in children. It made him one of the most respected neurosurgeons at Johns Hopkins Medicine, perhaps because he once struggled in his own childhood. Carson and his wife Candy, in 1997, co-founded the Carson Scholars Fund, dedicated to helping underprivileged students build a path toward education education and opportunity. Behind all of these achievements was the support and encouragement of his great mother. When young Carson once worried that he had no imagination, his mother would gently tell him, "Of course you do. Everyone has imagination." Later, during a sermon at church, Carson was able to visualize the scenes described in the story as if they were appearing right before his eyes. Whenever Carson felt he couldn't overcome an obstacle, his mother would firmly say, "If others can do it, you can do it too, and even better." It was his mother's constant encouragement that ignited his passion for learning. This is exactly what many families often lack. Of course, his achievements were not solely the result of external support. They also came from his own relentless effort. In countless nights, he immersed himself in books, nurturing the seeds of his dreams with hard work. Some may say that in the face of talent, effort means nothing, but you should know, life is either a bold adventure or nothing at all. Although not every persistence leads to success, some persistence can break through frozen ground and bloom into thousands of roses in full bloom.